What's up, guys? So today we're going to be working on the primary. I'm going to be pulling the cover off. We have to put a gasket on here. I'm also going to be pulling the starter off. The rebuild kit we put in it did not fix our problem, but I do have a new drive assembly I'm going to throw in there. So we're going to put that in. We're going to put that new cover on with the push button. I've also got new O-rings for all this. And a new primary drive adjustment piece we'll also be putting in. So let's get into it. So these are our tools and parts we're going to be using today. We've got the drill with the 3/16 Allen wrench bit I made just to get the primary cover screws off. Got various sizes of screwdrivers, flathead, Phillips head, and then I've got that small flathead for adjusting the clutch. Got a wrench, adjustable. I've got the paint stick that I'm going to use to take that cover off. This is something that I'll need, but you probably won't, because my starter is mounted with aftermarket bolts that are just bolts. So they're in there kind of precariously, so this is an adjustable wrench that I can get in there and get those out with. I've got, these are the new bolts that are going in. These are actually the hex bolts you're supposed to use. I'm also going to be using Allen wrenches, so I'm going to grab those too. This is my gasket kit that came from, I'll have to look it up, but I'll put that information in the description. There's the primary chain adjuster, all the O-rings and little gasket seals and all that. These are for the screws for the primary cover. Some of them don't have washers, so I bought some, and we'll see if those fit on there. This is the starter drive assembly, and this is the push button for the starter. And I'm going to link all this stuff in the description. So first we're going to take off these mid controls, and then we're going to get all these little screws off. We'll also need to take off our, there's this little bolt down here, and we'll see what else. This is my chain adjustment down here. It's not adjusted, as you can tell. It's just kind of in there, so we're not really messing anything up by just taking this all off. So first thing to come off is this bolt here. This is a 3/8 Allen wrench, and that holds in our foot peg. And our shifter knob wasn't locked down all the way, but this will probably vary on whatever setup you have. Alright, so I got all my bolts off, and then this guy was just finger tight, so we were able to get that off pretty easy. And I didn't mention this because I don't have oil in here currently, but you will need to drain your oil out of here. There's a drain plug down here. Not sure what size it is, but an adjustable wrench should take it out. Alright, I got all my bolts out. Now I'm going to take my clutch out. Start with that paint stick. Just take that cover off. Be careful, we got this spring in here, so we're going to pull that off. Pull that retaining piece off. And then we're going to undo this. And remember, this is reverse threaded, so it's going to be righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. Alright, now that all those bolts are off, this guy's off, and my clutch is off, we're going to wiggle this out of place. Alright, now that I've got that off, this is the inside. That's what we're looking at. We're going to be replacing this guy in here. And then these are the aftermarket bolts I was talking about. We'll see if we can get in there with that wrench, or if I need to finagle something. And there's our starter. So this is a little bit too fat to get in there. Doesn't quite fit around primary. So what I'm having to do is use this end, put it over like that, and then put a screwdriver in this end to kind of ratchet it out. Alright, I got those two out. And like I said, that was a problem in my own creation. I used these. It was a pain in the ass to put them in there, and I figured it was going to be a pain in the ass to get them out. But with hex bolts, it's going to be a lot easier because you can get right at it from the top. Alright, so we got our starter off. The only two things holding it on were our positive wire and our negative wire. So this is just a blade connector I pulled out, and then this, just use your wrench to pull that off. And it did take a little bit of finagling to get out of this little spot, but it wasn't too bad. I didn't have to take the exhaust off or anything, so. And I think I found that nut I lost from the exhaust before. Cool. And my blade connector did come off when I pulled the starter off, but I'm gonna just reinstall that before I put it back on. Alright, so now we got our starter off. We are going to be replacing this cover. We'll do this last. This is the same cover we pulled off before for our rebuild. It's just 3 flat or Phillips head screws. But right now we're going to be working on the other side. Right here we've got 2 Phillips head screws. And these are size 3 Phillips head, so don't strip out your screws trying to use a regular Phillips head. This is the big boy. Alright, now we're back on the other side, the side that faces out whenever you're looking at it. We're going to go ahead and take these 2 off. And be careful when you take this off, you don't want this entire motor assembly to come out. Alright, now that I got that out, we've got our assembly pulled out. And the part we're going to be replacing is this guy here. You can kind of see it compared. So, to pop this out, you just press on the outside end here. As you can see, mine already popped out. Be careful, because there's this little assembly in here. You don't want to lose any of these pieces. Mine luckily flew all over the table, so I was able to recover everything, but yeah, and then also this gear comes out. So make sure you save all that. So I'm going to wipe out all this old grease, and we're going to re-grease this with some fresh stuff, and get this reassembled. And I went ahead and put some gloves on after washing my hands, so there's grease in this thing. So this is the old one. You can kind of see this moves loosey-goosey in here. It's not supposed to. So this is the new one, and it does not move like that. Like if you rotate it, then it scoots back and forth as it's supposed to, but it shouldn't just move willy-nilly. So that's the issue here. Alright, so we're going to grease all this up. But this ball here goes in between this guy and this spring. So we're going to make sure we get that in there when we put it all back together. And then this guy fits right there in that hole, but on this shaft here. So I got everything greased back up and reassembled. I put everything kind of holds together whenever you put grease on it, which is fantastic. So that little piece that goes inside of the gear, that held together really well once you put some grease on it. And that ball bearing that fits inside of here sticks in there whenever you chuck it in there with some grease. So that holds everything really well together, and then you're able to kind of just close everything up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to get these bolted back together. Alright, I kind of wiped everything off and get some of the excess grease off of it. There's a lot of it. But these 2 are 10 millimeter. And then, just a reminder that these 2 are the size 3 Phillips head, the big boys. Strip them out. These, however, for this cover that we're about to remove, are regular Phillips head. I think these are also 10 millimeter, but this one looks to be rounded out or something, so it's just Phillips head now. Alright, so I got the old plate off. Here's the old gasket. And the new plate came with a new gasket. I'm going to link all this down below. And this is for the 1987 model. 1986 through like 1990, I think. Something like that. Yeah, it comes with a new gasket, and we're just going to reinstall it the way we pulled the old one off. 3 screws. Alright, we got our push button start installed. Very cool. Now I'm going to throw this back on the bike. And we are replacing those mounting bolts with the proper hex bolts. Alright, so I got our starter back on, put the new bolts. Now I'm going to change out this chain adjuster here. So I already slid this out a little bit. Pay attention to this spring. So this side sits inside your cover, so whenever we're putting this back on, we're going to have to make sure we lift that up. This side also sits inside your cover, so if that pops out when you're trying to slide this out, then make sure we get it back together in the proper orientation. But we're looking at 2 Phillips head screws right on the top of this, and we're just going to pull both of those out. Alright, so I got that replaced. I'm going to slide this all back on here. Make sure I get the orientation right. Don't mix this up. Make sure we slide that part on first. And then tuck this side up in there. And this might be a bit of a fight. But just keep at it and you'll get it in there. Alright, with a bit of finagling, we got it back in there. Just make sure it's lined up under this chain. And then, reminder, whenever we're putting that cover back on, we want to make sure we slide this up in there too. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and slide this back in place. Just be very gentle. Make sure you grab that spring there and pop it up in there. So I'm going to start on that side. And don't forget to pop your gasket on. So a couple things to note, along with the spring down here. I had some issues with fitment around the edges here. So I threaded this through just a little bit just to hold that one in place so it wouldn't drop down in there. And then I did the same thing on the bottom here. And then also the adjuster down here, I had to tighten this up a little bit just to kind of push it up out of the way because it was pushing that gasket out of the way. But now that I got that in place, I'm going to push it back up and I'm going to secure everything in place. Alright, I went ahead and replaced this oil ring here, this seal. I haven't cranked these down yet, they're just kind of on there. Now I'm going to pop our clutch back on. Remember, this is reverse threaded. This also came with a replacement gasket for your covers, so make sure you replace those. Yeah, so we went ahead and put the foot peg back on, the shifter knob, adjusted the clutch. I've got a video for that if you need to learn how to do that. These still aren't cranked down. I'll torque those all later on. Tried to get this off so we could adjust the chain, but we'll have to do that in another video because you can see this is all messed up. Somebody cranked this down at some point and it's not going to come off easily. Broke my paint stick trying, so I'm going to have to get a new one. Hopefully, maybe that'll be strong enough because this one's pretty old. But if not, I'll rig something up and we'll figure it out. Yeah, so leave a like, leave a comment if you got any questions, if you got any suggestions or anything like that, any ideas. And yeah, subscribe, follow along, and we'll keep working on this. See you next time.